all the men and women of the West, and I guess the East, since I'm joined by the ever so kind Eleanor again. How are you, Eleanor?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing good.
All right. Well, we're going to start with the story of Beren and Luthien, and I have about uh, almost 2.5 pages of notes. I have too many notes. This is this is an epic. This is a really big story. So we're gonna try to get through it as best we can. This is not going to be. It might not be easy. We might have to break this up into 2 episodes, because there's. It starts on page 152 all the way over to page 177 in the Silmarillion. Now, I originally intended to do it with the Beren and Luthien edition, which I got, which everyone should get. But the thing is, now I love the Lay of Luthien, and I plan to do some analysis of it on my Substack and maybe again on YouTube, because Tolkien does some interesting stuff with the poetry, and I say that as a poet myself. His technique is very interesting, very beautiful. But the trouble with this is we have 2 to 3 different versions of the same story in Beren and Luthien, and none of these are the final draft. The final draft is a 25 or about 25-page epic in the Silmarillion. Now, when it comes time for Children of Húrin, we'll use the actual novel, if you want, Eleanor. Fall of Gondolin, I don't know, because it's just I read this one and I found it broke off at a few points in the text. And then it would, you'd have a different draft that would kind of start from the beginning again. This happened with version 1 and 2, I believe. And we, of course, have several reprints of the Lay of Luthien. And we have beautiful art, of course. I mean, look at this.
Yeah.
I love this story. But the problem is, like I said, the different versions break off. And I kind of wanted the thing to go from beginning, middle, end, not break off. And much as I like the name Gorthor way more than Sauron, people know Sauron, not Gorthor, not Thu, which Thu is a good name as well, but they know Sauron. So we're gonna take it from the beginning, So I'll just remove my bookmark, because I bookmarked it at the beginning and end. Okay, now I'll just quickly delight in real quick the prose, because Tolkien's prose in English, I do believe you've read the English version, correct?
I read Chinese version. I'm sorry, but I can understand what you're saying. Yeah, go ahead.
The French version of Tolkien stories are quite interesting, but sometimes, how do I put it? Tolkien in English writes with a very poetic style. He was a philologist. He studied grammar professionally, so he knew how to flow it, how to make the text flow like it was a poem or song. But the strange thing about the French translations in a lot of cases, a lot of French translations, is they make it flat. We'll just tell the bald facts of the story. We're just going to flatten his prose. But you shouldn't do that with Tolkien. It's meant to be musical, to have a feel to it. And the thing is, his prose is better than our current day English prose because, it feels elevated. It's from the Victorian age and the Edwardian period, I guess, but it's very beautiful. It has been told that Barahir would not forsake Dorthonion, and there Morgoth pursued him to the death. Just there, that stylistic choice, that is not at all something you'd see today. But it is a very fascinating decision, and it flows better, I think. Now, praising him aside. Now, I believe we're on page 152. Yeah. And real quick, Dorthonion was a forest. Let's see if I can find a map so I can show it to people, because otherwise, I'm going to find a Balerian map because I'll feel bad otherwise. Let me just Google this real quick. I'll use a colored one.
I just realized that we don't have a Balerian map in this book.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it?
Yes, it's strange.
Most okay, the words aren't exact. This is a very strange map. I found, okay, let me see if I can't find something a little, no. Let me see, maybe this will do better. Sorry, I found one map and it was just too small. Let me see.
Wait, I think I have one.
Oh, bother, I can't find one. If you have one, I'd be very grateful. Let me see. I'm trying 3 different ones. Let's see. No. Well, no, they're all too small. I have to zoom in a lot. You know what? I'll just show one anyways. Still as a kind of visual aid. Let me see. Oh, you found one. Even better. All right. I like this. This one's a lot better
This
than what
is
I
clear.
found. Thank you, Eleanor. I really appreciate it. Yeah. It's very clear. I really like it. Now, where are you, Dorthonian? I'm blind. Well, it's somewhere in the north.
It's how do I put this? It's in the north of Doriath, right? The highland in the north of Doriath. So
yeah. So we have our visual aid. Thank heavens. I really like this map. So yeah. Bar here is pursued to the death there by Morgoth. Well, not Morgoth himself, but his minions, because Morgoth is suffering from a case of cripplement. He's had half his foot sliced off, and last time I checked, most people who have half their foot sliced off usually need a rest period. Now, our hero is accompanied by 12 companions, which 12 companions, let me think. This would be akin to, well, there's a bit of a reference there to the 12 apostles, but I'm not sure if that's what Tolkien had in mind. It might be the Merry Men. I'm not sure how many Merry Men there are. I'm not an expert on Robin Hood lore, but it might be closer to that, because Tolkien did like to borrow from different English folklore and ideas.
Yeah.
And we have to bear in mind, Barahir is technically an outlaw. Now, among the companions of Barahir was Gorlim, son of Angrim. Now, Angrim itself is a variant of a Nordic name, Arngrim. Arngrimr was a guy who got Tyrfing, the demon sword, or an evil sword that, when drawn, has to kill someone. So, Tolkien is here referencing a very interesting Nordic saga. I quite like it. The saga, I mean, and the reference. Elinel was Gorlim's wife, and of course, Gorlim can't quite forget her or let go of her because that was his wife. And here we have, despite Tolkien's very cynical nature, because he was very cynical, I think in some ways he was also a very deep romantic. So the story of a husband who cannot let go of his wife. There's an echo here in Luthien not being able to let go of Beren, really, later on. But it also speaks to Tolkien, who in World War I could not let go of Edith. So there's his views and vision of romance and love, which you can see here. And it adds an extra layer to this story so that we have this very, very tragic love story going on here. And it's in the autumn that Gorlin would try to be reunited with her. And because he thought he saw her. And because of this, he's caught by Sauron's hunters. And it turns out this was an illusion, a spell of sorts cast by Sauron's hunters, and Gorlin is captured, tortured, and it's not until they promise to restore him his wife that he falters. And Sauron, of course, forces the information out of him. And he is mocked and told his wife was killed, which before he is killed. Now, a lot of this is done in a very sadistic manner. But here's an interesting thing about Sauron. We never actually see him speak in Lord of the Rings, I think. He doesn't appear. He doesn't speak. Unless you count the ring as being kind of him in a way, I guess. But even then, the ring doesn't talk. But here we have him speaking.
Yeah, because it was before his body got destroyed back in the fourth Numenor, right? He got his body here, but he didn't have his body in the events of the Lord of the Rings.
Precisely. And
yeah,
it is interesting that we have the voice of Sauron here. And boy, howdy, is he a sadist. And this sadistic side of him is something we kind of knew about. It was hinted at because Golem had been tortured by him. And oh, bless you. It was...
Sorry.
It's okay. Bless you. But yeah, old Gorthor talks and cruelly puts poor Gorlam to death. But little does he know is that this is going to come back to bite him, as Gorlam's wraith goes on to visit Beren and warn him and tells him to make haste to his father. So the wraith or the phantom appearing to you and warning you of danger, this is Hamlet. This is also... Well, Shakespeare has this happen in several plays. I think Macbeth kind of does something like this. You have Hamlet. This is very old English folklore. And it's something I really liked when I read it this time around. It really stood out to me. I don't know if you've ever read Shakespeare, but his plays have quite a few phantoms and wraiths coming along to communicate with the living. It's very creepy.
Yeah.
But, of course, Let me just check my notes. Yeah. And Beren ends up, of course, burying his father because his father doesn't make it because he's killed. And um, and Beren ends up escaping with and living in the wilderness for 4 years, which is quite the long time to be alone. Now, it's said that he became the friend of birds and beasts. And this is where we start to step into a bit of more of a fairy tale style of storytelling, because before it felt more mythopoetic. Now it feels more like Brothers Grimm or Perrault or something. It feels more like a classic folk tale. And that's because the birds and the beasts aid and did not betray Beren. And the reason I think this is important to make this distinction between this story and the others is because most of them don't have this sort of thing. In the first few chapters of Lord of the Rings, when Tolkien was first writing it as a bit of a Hobbit 2, the Electric Boogaloo, is that in there a fox appears and wonders about the hobbits. And you have in the Hobbit itself, it's more a fairy tale. And the thing here is Lord of the Rings steps out of the fairy tale and into the romance, into the world of grand adventure, and how do I put it? Steps into the world of the Silmarillion, into the world of um, King Arthur, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Leo Bay. Like it steps into these sort of realms rather than staying in the fairy world. And yet, here in the middle of the Silmarillion, we have the fairy story coming in. It's a very interesting thing that happens. I have to admit, I forgot about this part of this story because it's been a long time since I read this story. But it was an interesting thing to see this come up over and over again. And of course, Sauron's 6 werewolves on them, along with at various points. But Morgoth apparently sets a price on Beren's head, one that rivals that of Fingon. I don't know if this means Morgoth doesn't think much of Fingon or he thinks a lot of Beren. But I've got the theory that it's because he senses something is different about Beren. Beren is not like other men. He has a destiny ahead of him that is quite a bit greater than most men of his generation. And one could say the same about John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. Now, the thing with Beren is that he climbs into the region of the Gorgoroth. Could we maybe zoom in on Gorgoroth, please? Eleanor?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I was
Sorry,
just
I
wondering
didn't
if we.
catch that.
Okay, sorry. I was wondering if we could zoom in on Gorgoroth, the Mountains of Terror.
You mean the map?
Yeah, just over
The
with
map?
the map. Yeah, just
I can't really find it, and I don't think we can zoom in
zoom.
the map.
Oh,
No, I
okay,
don't
that's
think
all
so.
right. Well, it's needless to say north of Doriath.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Gorgoroth, the Mountains of Terror where Ungoliant, I think, had fled. The arid Gorgoroth, which is where all the spiders are.
Yeah.
Yeah, every woman's dreamland. Um, um, I don't know about you, but I don't have much care for spiders. I tend to just like
No,
smushing them.
no. I kind of I'm afraid of them. In fact,
Okay, I just detest them. I just immediately stomp them when I see them. Even when I'm outside, I'm not very nice to them. Um, Used to annoy my classmates quite a bit because some of my classmates felt pity for spiders, and I would just stomp on them.
how?
And my classmates would just then go, "Why'd you stomp it? It might because there was a superstition if you stomp on a spider, it would rain for a week. It's gonna rain now. It's gonna rain now. You can't do that. Why'd you do that? You're gonna make it rain." And I hated spiders too much. I couldn't help it. And yeah, it was a French superstition. I don't know where it comes from. Um, Maybe I should bring that up in one of my stories. But yeah, so he endures the horrors of giant man-eating spiders, which we can only imagine how horrible that was. And of course, he listed on. Oh yeah, that dog. The dog usually joins me at this time, um, but as for oh, he's gonna start scratching. Okay.
Okay, take your time.
Yeah, you can come in. I don't want you on the bed. I have to put the gate up. There. Sorry about that. I'll just make him some space. He has a chair here in the office. He's not allowed in the other room. Come here. You're allowed in the office, but not the other room. Okay, come here, puppy. All right. So, our great hero ends up slipping into Neldareth, which I really like the name of, the Forest of Neldareth, and there he finds, of course, the most beautiful maiden who had ever lived. And, well, that maiden happens to be Luthien. Now, we were introduced to Luthien a few chapters ago, and it was mostly with her birth being an auspicious moment. And I think in some of my earlier videos, I called her the Luke Skywalker of Tolkien's Legendarium. But it was
Makes
just as
sense. Makes sense. I get your point. Yeah.
It was a bit of clickbait, but I think there's some. It's a little apt. Now, the thing about Luthien is, in a way, she's kind of the main character of the Silmarillion to an extent. Oh, he's going to start pouting because he didn't get his way. 1 second.
Oh my god.
Child, go. No, he doesn't want to go. He's just so spoiled. Yeah, he's just going to do whatever he wants.
Oh my god.
What?
He's cute. He's so cute. Sorry.
Don't worry. I'll send a picture. I'll post a picture later. He is cute.
Sure.
But he does whatever he wants. It's because he wants his walk, and he's gonna have to wait because it's raining outside. But the thing about Luthien is also that interesting fun fact that is very commonly known is that she was inspired, well, by his wife, Edith. Edith Tolkien was Tolkien's Luthien. And it happened that... No. Assis-toi. Assis-toi. Kosh. Kosh, je t'aime aussi. I love you too. Luthien Tenuviel came to Tolkien, apparently, like he saw her as a character, in a way, according to him, when his wife would dance in the forest for him, which I believe the Tolkien 2019 movie captured that scene very well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really like that movie. Ironically, I have to do a podcast on that later. On that movie, analyzing it in 2 parts as well. Oh, he's pouting. Sorry, he's pouting and won't
It's
look at me
okay.
now. We'll call him Juan for now. And I guess I'm Kelligorm. But, but the thing is that, or I'm Kurufin. But the thing is, Edith was also a very special lady in that we know historically she would recopy Tolkien's work. So some projects, I think, like Children of Húrin and I think one of the versions of Earendel and I think Beren and Luthien were recopied by her because it started to fade. Now, let me see. One of the oldest stories I ever wrote was my Heishi Monogatari novel. And if you pay attention, the ink has started to fade.
Yeah.
Well, on this side as well. So I have a story that I wrote in 2016 to, no, it was 2015 or 16 through to 2018. And it has started to fade. So my brother and I panicked and we started recopying it onto computer. Otherwise, we'd lose the story permanently. It's one of my favorites. But the thing is, same thing began happening with Tolkien. And I wonder how many stories did fade because he neglected to properly put them in their proper place because he was a disorganized mess. And Edith and Christopher did not get to these stories and preserve them. So Edith, in terms of the Legendarium, I would credit her with a lot. Like she is as important as Christopher because she saved Middle Earth several times, not just in the story, but like the writings. And so the thing is, Luthien is a very special character, and I think we should pay her the proper respect because Tolkien, I think she was probably his favorite character.
Personally,
much as yeah. I have to admit, this read through, I really liked her a lot more than previous ones. Maybe because I'm older, but I've just every time I read it, I like her more and more. She's got spunk for one thing, and she's basically the ideal English woman. Well, that's if English women could live up to ideals. I'm joking. I'm French. I have to make fun of the English. We're old rivals. But actually, no. Like, there's a lot of I've found a English woman who makes teapots, like images. She just does teapot images on Twitter. It's just the most English thing and lovely thing I've seen in months. So maybe I'll send her account to you if you like Luthien. It's just amazing what she's doing. But the thing with Luthien is that she's dancing in this glade, and of course, Beren happens upon her. And let me see if I can find the exact quote. Okay. Let me see. I've got, where is it? Let's see. It is told in the Lay of Luthien that Beren came stumbling into Doriath, grey and bowed as with many years of woe. So great had been the torment of the road. But wandering in the summer in the woods of Neldareth, he came upon Luthien, daughter of Thingol and Melian, at a time of evening under moonrise, as she danced upon the unfading grass in the glades beside Esgalduin. Then all memories of his pain departed upon him, and he fell into an enchantment, for Luthien was the most beautiful of all the children of Ilúvatar. Blue was her raiment as the unclouded heaven, but her eyes were gray as the starlit evening, Her mantle was sewn with golden flowers, but her hair was dark as the shadows of twilight, as the light upon the leaves of trees, as the voice of clear waters, as the stars above the mists of the world. Such was her glory and her loveliness, and her face was a shining light.
Very, very beautiful.
Sounds like a man in love.
Yeah.
Uh, and we have to bear in mind some parts of these paragraphs, which are blendings of the different versions, were written even when he was middle aged, and we have to bear in mind how Tolkien described his life when Edith died. He said his story had gone crooked, and he bemoans that she left him. So even into old age, I think into what was it? It'd be his 70s. He was still very much madly in love with his Luthien. That's life goals. That's beautiful. And of course, she takes fright, and because he's struck dumb by her, and he of course calls her Tenuviel, the nightingale, daughter of twilight, in the Grey Elven tongue, and because he doesn't know her name yet. And the thing is, what's interesting is that this meeting is very similar to that of Thingol and Melian. We have an echo, a repetition, but it's not repetitive. I wonder, because Tolkien was a fan of classical music. He went to the opera, as we know, especially with Edith. And in a lot of symphonies, because the only way I can write is I listen to classical music. It's just, I don't know, I'm built that way. But in classical music, you have a lot of repetition, like in Beethoven, the Fifth Symphony and the Ninth in particular, have these verses and these parts where it repeats. And every time it like hammers you with the force of a jackhammer, and that is the thing about this sort of repetition. Tolkien is very much doing a symphony here type of thinking with literature. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well.
Yeah. Because in the story of Aragorn and Arwen, it happens again, right? Like Aragorn just walked around in the forest and he saw Arwen for the first time and happened again. So it's like 3 times repeat. And you just mentioned that it kind of it's like it's like music. So it's not only like in the classic opera music. It happens in very, I would say it
Modern
happens
music.
in very, like very old Asian poems as well, like Asian poetry literature as well. So I think
Yeah.
it's very, yeah, because it, so the history is repeating himself, you know. So
Yeah.
it's like it reminds me of the idea, the concept of the great music, the Ailolindale. So it's like there is a whole music repeating itself throughout history. So things
And
keeps
repeating.
repeating. Yeah.
But what's interesting is also it's like three movements, because in classical music
Yeah.
you have
True.
multiple
True. Yeah.
movements. Like first movement, Thingol and
Yeah.
Melian. Second movement, this couple, and then the third one, Aragorn and Arwen. But yeah, I have noticed French, English, and even Chinese poetry do have this
Yeah. We
repetition.
have this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's something very universal with poetry. It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sure a better
think
scholar
Tolkien must,
could.
yeah, I think Tolkien must notice that. So uh he did this intentionally.
Well, it came out very well.
Yeah.
And of course, we have, I believe it was on the next page. Let me see. I'm just looking for, now what's interesting is that Tolkien also blends in a very old classical trope. I don't know the term, what term I should use, but there's something that, like the spurned lover, like, with a love triangle, you've got the two who love each other, and then you've got the third wheel. You get the third person who is not loved, but he becomes spiteful. Now, sometimes it's like, I'll actually use a positive example. You have Galadriel, Celeborn, and Gimli. But here, Gimli does not turn foul. He becomes nobler and better because he loves Galadriel, but he doesn't want to take her away from Celeborn. He accepts his fate. He's just the first knight of Galadriel in a way. This is very Arthurian. But the thing with Darren is that he's an inversion. It's a return to, well, I'll use another example. In Greek mythology, you have Paris, the prince who steals away Helen of Troy. Those two love each other. But Paris had an ex whom he broke with, and she becomes darker and darker in some versions. So you have this triangle. And Darren is apparently, because Luthien keeps slipping out to meet with Beren. Honestly, maybe Amazon should have made a cartoon movie of this story instead. I don't know. This would have been better than what they did do. But I don't think they had access to this story. Thank heavens. Thank heavens they'd have ruined it. Sorry, I'm biased.
It's okay.
But Darren, of course, finds out about these meetings and goes to rat her out. He's not a very nice guy. And of course, he's full of jealousy and envy. And Beren is to be dragged before the throne of Thingol. But Luthien is very clever. And this is the first time we see how clever she is. She presents him as her, I guess you could say, fiance. And so you can't exactly present him as a criminal if he's presented as an honored guest. That's the thing. And we know from history, Edith was very, very clever. So this is like, because I've read a bit of Tolkien's life story, and it's just so funny how he slips these little shades in there. But with Tolkien's story, it's interesting because this is an inversion of his own story, because Tolkien presented it Edith to his family, but they didn't approve of her because she was Protestant and he was Catholic. So there's that inversion he's doing here. Yeah. And Thingol is a lot like, I think, Tolkien's own adoptive father, who was a Catholic priest. But apparently he softened up later. So like Thingol does. It's a great story. But of course, Thingol commands that Beren be allowed to speak. And we get just, the trouble is Beren sasses the king. He just sasses him, and it's like he picks a fight with him and says, nothing will keep him from Luthien. And but then Thingol tells him, "Death you have earned with these words, and death you should find suddenly, had I not sworn an oath in haste, of which I repent, base-born mortal," which is a big insult. Base-born is very.
Sorry, my parents are home. I got to have a greeting with them. Just a second.
It's okay.
讲过这呢？
Ow. I think I cut myself. Okay. That's my fault. Well, I'll just simply present on, let's see. Where was I? Yeah. Baseborn mortal. Now, let me actually look at the definition of baseborn.
Oh, sorry. Can you wait me for like 2 minutes?
Yeah, okay. I'll just... We'll just consider this an intermission.
Okay.
Let me check the weather. Let's see. Walter. All right. Now, baseborn means of poor background.
I'm back. Sorry.
No problem. Now,
Okay, so where are we?
We are at Thingol's speech because Beren was presented to him. Beren sassed him. Thingol then gets angry and says, I regret. Basically, he says, I regret actually promising not to harm you, you jerk.
Yeah.
You know what? As punishment, I'll give you well, basically, in the end, they bicker a little. I'll just skim over that. And what ends up happening is that Thingol demands he find him a Silmaril. And Beren, actually, this is something I did not realize. Because I've presented on him a few times, but it's only in this reread that I've kind of realized how cocky he is. He's very overconfident. Like, he sasses a king and basically bickers with him in the middle of the court. You did not do this. And when he's told, I want you to get me a Silmaril, you're going to go up to the devil, you're going to grab his most precious item and present it to me. And what does he go and do? He says, he laughs at this and says, for little price do elven kings sell their daughters, for gems and things made by craft. But if this be your will, Thingol, I will perform it. And when we meet again, my hand shall hold a Silmaril from the Iron Crown. For you have not looked the last upon Beren, son of Barahir. He's just so cocky. It's you have to realize, he must realize, the greatest elvish king, Thingolfin, basically tried this and died. If the greatest of the elves of the Eldar could not pull this one off, what chance does he have? And how do I put it? I've been reading about a lot of, and listening in audio format to a lot of different reactions from veterans of World War I and II. And a lot of them what's interesting is the more intelligent ones often would get frightened, and they'd like mentally talk down to themselves, like, I can't do this. There's no way I could charge across this field. There's no way. But then when you've got the more average IQ ones, they just get up and go. So they're kind of, some of them were thought to be more valuable because they didn't spend as much time in their heads. But a lot of those men spend too much time in their heads, obviously. But especially with artillery rounds just smashing into the ground next to them. Poor guys. But the thing with Beren's kind of cockiness is that this was the cockiness that a lot of the Youths had in 1914 when they were first dispatched into those fields in France and Germany. And this is the sort of overconfidence you see in medieval and ancient texts, such as ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient China, ancient Japan, France, like all throughout their history. These sort of men did really well in those periods. It's just in more modern times, not as much, because modern warfare is very different. But this cockiness, he's basically going down into something that's probably worse than any World War I or II field of battle, and he's basically going, yeah, okay, I'll do this. This is going to be easy. He's not really thinking about it. Now, Melian offers advice and tells her husband, you've devised a cunning counsel, but, she says, she sees that this is not going to end well for Thingol, and she has to intervene. Thingol doesn't answer. Well, he does answer, but he doesn't listen to her warnings. He's not listening. And we have here the first break, in a way, in the union of the two. Now, I'm not saying they're getting divorced, obviously not. They're very devoted. But we have here a break between the couple. They have a difference in opinion. And Tolkien presents an interesting image of a middle-aged couple in a way, where the husband's headstrong and going to do whatever he wants, while the wife's trying to gently take his hand and say, listen, I don't think this is going to be a good idea. But he's very aware about relationships and how they evolve, because Thingol and Melian are a mirror, in a way, of an older version of Luthien and Beren, in a way. Now, obviously, Beren and Luthien age better and are wiser in their middle years than Thingol and Melian. But I think this is where we see the true value of Melian. She offers good wisdom and counsel to her husband. Now, many people criticize Thingol very harshly, but I don't. I really like him. I think he gets a lot of unnecessary hate. And I think he's... the problem is he just wants to get rid of this punk. But, actually, I'll make one quick comparison. Now that I think about it, because my brother and I are going to have to watch for another podcast, Little Mermaid. And what we noticed is, contrary to what people think, Prince Eric is very cocky, just like Aladdin from the Disney movie. And that's kind of what Beren reminds me of. Just this old world cockiness. And I have to admit, the reputation Beren has in some parts of Reddit and Substack and Twitter is as a male damsel in distress. He does not have the best reputation. But contrary to what his naysayers say, he's very masculine. Actually, he's the one who avenges Thingol, so he's obviously really cool. But, the story progresses, and he goes off to find help. Because, cocky as he is, he's ejected from the kingdom, and he knows he can't just go up to Morgoth and take the Silmaril. He's going to need backup. He's going to need to find himself a fellowship, so to speak, and get some help. And interestingly, Luthien is said to be silent, and that she doesn't sing anymore in Doriath. And, the shadows lengthen in the kingdom of Thingol. Now, of course, Beren presents himself and his ring of Barahir, which was given to... Beren presents himself with the ring of his father, Barahir, a lovely, I think, emerald ring, and emerald encrusted ring, I should say. And the ring was given to Barahir by Finrod Felagund, because Barahir, who who was a relation of Andreth, had rescued, that is to say Barahir, had rescued Felagund. I think we covered that in our last video last
episode.
Yeah. And Beren now basically calls in the oath. Now, in that time, since Finrod impulsively swore that oath, the situation in Nargothrond has changed. And the Feanorians have entrenched themselves in the great kingdom of Nargothrond. And what I mean by this is you have Celegorm and Curufin, two of the most ruthless, perhaps the most ruthless of the sons of Feanor, who present themselves there. And the thing is, naturally, they start raising heck. And the two of them have their own ideas in mind for Nargothrond. And, of course, Felagund realizes to go is to seal his fate, but not to go is to break his oath, and he cannot do that. So, he's got to suck it up. But he comments to everyone as he casts down the silver crown of Nargothrond. Your oaths of faith to me you may break, but I must hold my bond. Yet if there be any on whom the shadow of our curse has not yet fallen, I should find at least a few to follow me, and should not go hence as a beggar that is from the gates. And, of course, he's followed by several of his men, including Yggdrasil, who lifts the crown, who wants to have it given to a steward. Basically, the idea is for there to be a steward, not a replacing king. But the crown instead is given to Orodreth, brother of Felagund. And Orodreth thus becomes king, and Celegorm and Curufin leave with a great deal of satisfaction. History vegette. But the two of them have just caused the fall of a very strong king. And Orodreth will not be the strong king his father or brother are. Oh, excuse me. I have to let the dog out. Ow.
Okay.
My foot is asleep. 1 moment. Okay, good. There you are. Get out. Oh, shame. He wanted to go into the other room. And I won't let him, so he's fussing. He also wanted to convince me to take him out, but it's raining. He's going to have to wait. Because I don't like going out in the rain. It'd be different if it was snowing. Oh, man, I hope the snow stays until June next year. Yeah, we have snow until June sometimes. Well, from September to June. So most of the year it's frozen over here. Well, I'm going to be going further up north for work in a few months. So, and if I'm still there next year, I hope it will be covered in snow and ice till June. I don't much like summer.
Nothing. I just want to say that I like summer. I prefer summer than over winter. I'm a summer person. Yeah.
Okay. Whereas I'm a winter guy. It's just well, I guess I'm 8% Scandinavian apparently, because we did DNA testing on ourselves recently. So I guess the Scandinavian comes out.
Okay.
I'm 50% French and 21% Scottish. So very much a mutt. And very mixed, I guess. My notes are very mixed up. But of course, Felagund and Beren set off on the quest. They end up in near the highlands of Luthien, and of course, they pretend to be orcs, I believe. And well, yeah, Felagund has them take on the form and faces of orcs, and of course, they're presented before Sauron, and we have a rap battle, for lack of a better term, between Felagund and Sauron. Sauron wins because, for one thing, Felagund can't rap, but he can sing. Sorry, I couldn't resist that joke. But his their song battle is very fascinating. And it's interesting that Tolkien preferred to have the battle be in song than like a sword fight or a magic duel. Now, most cartoons that are fantasy based or mythic based or something tend to do really great sword fights or magic spell casting and whatnot back and forth. And there's a lot of great shows and stories that do this. I really do like it when they do that. But how many, now it might be different over where you are, maybe some creatives learned the proper lesson from this story, but I don't know many other creatives who have song battles, who have the characters just engage in a song between each other and they combat in this way.
Did Melkor and other did Melkor and other Valas had this kind of music battle before?
Well, yeah, in the Ainulindale, they between more Melkor and Manwë, and the rest of them, and Olmo, and the thing, but then we get Felagund versus Sauron. I'm just wondering, is there any stories in? Now I'm not tapped in like I should be because into probably Chinese, Korean, or Japanese fantasy literature these days. I have a Japanese fantasy novel I picked up on my last trip to Japan. But the thing is, I don't think it does any song battles. It's more about taming animals and dogs for some reason in a fantasy world. I don't know why that has to be put in a fantasy world, but I guess, okay, whatever works. But is there any battles that are done with song out there?
I don't know. The closest thing I can think of are Disney's princess movie.
Princess
Like
movie?
when the princess in Disney animation movie, when they sings and then magical things will happen. That's the closest thing I can think of.
Yeah, and those movies did it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just know them because, as an adult, because I studied animation under some of the animators who drew those, and it was very humbling. But they were looking at it as they were looking at Tolkien for inspiration for what they were doing, and they were also looking further back into like English and Irish poetry and music, and relying on this and on the Bible's Psalms. So they're relying on like 2,000 years of music and literary history. Very few people know that, and it's why, like, stepping into class sometimes I got a headache because there was just so much information dumped on us, just on like the characters singing, the music, and they were like, well, when the character's singing, you have to have the animation flow. The character has to constantly be moving. and whatnot. And they're like, and it was a lot of information, and we'd be told music theory and stuff like that. And I'm not very good at the musical theory and whatnot. Um, and when I told them I can't draw or write without classical music, they said, "Good, that's good, but you have to also break down the musical theory of those symphonies." I could not do that, so I got criticism for that. Um, and needless to say, I barely passed. I didn't do too well, but my professor Don, he did take me aside a few times and just gave me some good advice and was like, "No, you do it like this, you do it like that." I was able to make the rats move, like the rats in Cinderella. I was able to make them move, or the like in Robin Hood. I can brag about that. The the princess stuff was really, 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 really hard. But that's the thing. Like this sort of song battle. I'm also going to plug my Olymp no Machi. I have a song battle at the end of Olymp no Machi, which is available for free on Royal Road, and it's available also on my Substack. And in it, there's a song battle between a goddess and Heracles, the Greek mythological hero, and I have them song battle. So I did end up. I learned from Felagund and Sauron.
Yeah.
What was that?
What?
I heard the ding.
Voice? Oh, it's my computer.
Oh, okay. That scared me.
Sorry. So I found it very fascinating that the if you look at the rap battles between Sauron and Ferrod, if you look at it very closely, you will find out that um
Mm-hmm.
Sauron at first he cannot defeat Finrod, but when Sauron mentioned the clean slaying, and Finrod was like, "Oh my god!" And he was defeated. It is the king slaying that the memory of it defeated Finrod.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah. Um, it adds an extra layer of tragedy and death.
yeah,
This story.
yeah, because
And
it links back to the event, to
excuse
the
me.
events of bless you. It links back to the event of Akolande, and make it like a continuing story, a whole picture. So I like it.
Yeah, Tolkien is
Yeah.
really good at these callbacks. Like
Yes.
uh, you arrive at page in the hardcover copy of this Silmarillion, at 162 or 161. You have callbacks to like Alcorlonde, uh, to Finwë, to Feanor, and he even does these callbacks in Lord of the Rings. Next week, when Matt and I meet for our Ring Lord stream, um, well, we've I've noted there's some callbacks to
Mm,
Silmarillion, and these callbacks always go back and forth. Like
yeah.
he hints at what's to come in Lord of the Rings or later in the Silmarillion, all while also referencing what came before. And this is a very special technique. He's got a very special technique for this. And the only other kind of fantasy author, I guess you could say, who does this is Robert E. Howard with his Conan stories, where he has the
Oh,
early Conan stories hint at what's to come later. Like he starts off his Conan stories, chronologically at least, with a 15-year-old Conan who murders a man in a bar brutally, murders him. But then at the end of that short story, Conan meets someone who's been tortured all his life. And he's filled with pity. And the person says, "Will you kill me?
um,
Please, just end my suffering." And Conan, at 15, his heart melts and he's filled with pity. And he suddenly realizes there's someone who suffered more than him. And he does, end the person's life amidst bitter tears. But yeah, I know a lot of people don't think of Conan as crying, but he does kind of weep a little for someone who suffered more than him. And Conan, but then here's the thing. Conan in Hour of the Dragon, the great epic that Howard wrote, which is his Lord of the Rings, Conan thinks no one suffered worse than him because he's been captured by an evil king, the Dark Lord. And he meets someone who suffered far more than him, Zenobia, who releases him from bondage, like what Luthien does for Beren in the exact same scenario, in the almost the exact same way. She unlatches his cage, she provides him a knife, helps him, give him the means to escape, and this is the sort of thing, like echo. And this is a technique that older writers seem to have practiced a lot. But modern writers, at least modern English and French writers, in my experience, don't do that no more. Spanish writers today still do. I've noticed that because I read some Spanish lit. They still do it. Some Japanese writers I've noticed do this today. I've seen one Chinese story, which I saw it turned into a Korean drama. They kind of did this. So it's a technique that's known in some places still to this day, but in English, it's been mostly forgotten for some reason. I don't know why. It's inexplicable. But Luthien, for her part, chooses to seek out the aid of Darren. He may have exposed her, but she didn't know he exposed her. And he betrays her immediately. And because Thingol, we have to bear in mind, is a father. And he's filled with fear and wonder. And he's terrified for his little princess. And he may as well tell her, he is a human and you are a mermaid. Because, Little Mermaid's basically this story, at least a Disney version. Triton is Thingol. And Ariel is Luthien. Like the way they portray it, it's all, they're taking inspiration. Actually, that's something I've messaged with one of the animators from Little Mermaid once, and spoken with Dawn Bluth, who was the rival to Disney at the time, and they mentioned, yes, they had read The Silmarillion, I think, and they were looking at the story for a lot of inspiration. So it's a little interesting how this all ties in together. Animators are very impressive people. They're usually very well read and intelligent. I admire them. But Luthien is captured and put up in a mighty beach. And when I say beach, I mean B-E-C-H, not B-E-A-C.
Okay. I got it.
Yeah, I'm saying that for the viewers because I think I pronounced it the same way. And I think there's a difference in pronunciation. Sipple. It's called the Hurilorn. I hope I pronounced that right. And this is where we get into the story of Rapunzel. I don't know. I think you know the story of Rapunzel, right? The German story where she has long hair. Which Rapunzel, let down your hair, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Disney made a great movie.
Very similar. They're very similar.
But Luthien is even smarter than Rapunzel. She makes her hair grow, and then she cuts it and weaves a dark robe from her hair, and then she twines the rest with a rope, and she lets it down from the window, and apparently it sways, and the guards fall asleep because of it. Then she escapes, shrouded in this dark cloak, and vanishes from Doriath. This is a fairy tale at this point. Like, it's so German.
Yeah.
It's so German. And it's offending my French sensibilities. I'm joking. We French don't have a story like this. So, but this is very German because Rapunzel is a German story. And it was retold by the Brothers Grimm. And of course, Tolkien's now turned it English. And there's nothing more English than to steal what the Germans have and just pretend it's theirs. I'm joking. The English are going to hate me for saying that. I actually love both England and Germany. It's just England and Germany are they're cousins, because Germans in the 5th century colonized England, so they're very similar countries, metaphysically and linguistically and culturally in a lot of ways. Um, so, of course, Caligorm and Curufin are out on a hunt, as boys were wont to do in that time. Um, when and they brought their dog, of course, because you have to take them out for a walk, um, and for a hunt or three. And they happen upon Luthien, which it's interesting because she is hidden from Caligorm and Curufin. Uh, so that my theory that this is basically all that is the most mystical aspects of Melian were poured into Luthien at birth, and she is so I don't she's almost a Maiar. She's half Maiar, but she's beyond anything that the Eldar could conjure forth on their own. In a lot of ways, she's far more mystical and great than Feanor and Fingolfin, I think. So, yeah, she and she ended up almost slipping past the two guys. Not going to judge them. She slipped past everyone, even the great King Thingol. And Huan, of course, smells her and sees her because he's full Maiar and pounces on her. And she's startled, knocked down, and has to basically declare herself the daughter of, um, the of Thingol. Now, of course, Caligorm is smitten, or enamored is the term, but we should look at it as more lustful. He's full of lust for Luthien, which is not okay. I say not okay just in the context of, um, now there's a now what Tolkien does here is he makes a distinction between a physical desire and the more, uh, well, now it's fairly the genie's out of the bottle, I guess, but the classic Christian ideal of love. Now we know historically love between a man and a woman, a true love, like where they love each other, heart, soul, mind, body, is something that even the pre-Christian age had. Like, uh, I had to study the Bronze Age at one point, and we have some of the most tender love. I don't want to say letters, but because the king wrote it in his journal, about how much he loved his wife, because his wife was dying and he was praying for her and whatnot. And he was writing to the gods, just saying, "Save her! Somebody do something." He can't imagine his life without his wife. She dies, and he's utterly broken, and she's poisoned to death, and so he's just broken. And that was Mershali the Second, and we know, like, what's his name? One of the husband of Uzershian, I hope I pronounced that right, loved her very much. So the thing with this sort of love is that this is the kind of love Beren and Luthien have. But the physical love, but which is just pure physical, is not love. You're enamored, you are lustful. And this is something traditional Christian philosophers did not like. And they said, if your love is merely physical, cast it out. It's a sin. This is not good for you. You can't treat a woman that way. You have to truly love her. And they would turn to women and say, you are not truly in love with a man if you are meeting with many men or sleeping with them. You should love only one man and truly give yourself to him, like heart, soul, mind, whatnot. And they would always count. They were matchmakers, I guess. They were just always telling people love each other, not in the physical sense, but in the other sense. And before you even get to the bed. And Tolkien is making this distinction very clear with Caligorm. And
yeah.
I emphasize all this because Caligorm is very much an antagonist. He's a villainous force in the context of the story.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's important to bear in mind the Silmarillion is a anthology. It's a collection of different epics. So we have different stories running all through the great epic. And so in this story, these two are the villains. Now in the Fall of Feanor, they were kind of, I guess you could say, anti-heroes. They were not like pure evil. But I'm not saying that they're pure evil now, but just that they're more villainous now. They've taken a shade for the darker here. They're ahead of their other brothers in that sense. Only Maglor never goes all in, I would argue. Kudos to Maglor, he rocks. And and that was a pun. He rocks. I don't think he did rock music, but his concerts would probably rock and whatnot. I think everyone would like them. um, but the thing is, they want to bring Luthien to Nagrafrond, and because they know Orodreth has no power to withstand them, because they also hold sway over the people of Nagrafrond, and there's very little Orodreth can do against them. But their plan is basically to claim Luthien and claim the support of Nargothrond. And, well, it's throne, really, basically usurping Orodreth, and claim power over Doriath. So these guys are, while everybody else is focused on the Silmaril or rescuing Beren and Felagund, these guys are basically, if I had that clip, I'd from that Street Fighter movie from '92 or something, I'd probably put that scene in here just because they want to take over the world, basically. And the clip would just say, "But of course!" Like these two are greedy. I won't say ambitious, they're greedy. I don't know what you think. I know you love the Feanorians. What do you think of these two wanting to take over?
I love Feanorian for they are being the villain. They are good villains, I think. So it's great to see them to have such, I would
Strength.
say such ambition. Is that
Mm.
correct? Is that right?
I think
Did I make
so.
sense? Did that make sense? Yeah.
But I think um, the interesting thing is I've been having a debate on Substack with some people about ambition as a
Yeah.
term, and they've been making the distinction between ambition and greed. Like they've been saying ambition can be a good thing. It's probably we should reclaim the word and say this is good. It's good for men and women to be ambitious. But greed is bad. So I'm not
Okay.
scolding you. I just think there's an interesting difference.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I
True.
think you are right. Ambition would be a very good word here. Um, there was a writer in the 80s who wrote a great historic fiction novel. And what he made the distinction was no, ambition, yeah, ambition would be the right term for this. And what he said was there's dark ambition. He used that term for his villains. They have a dark
Yeah.
ambition. But he said for his hero, who's in particular a monk who wants to build a cathedral because he just loves people and loves God, he said he has a holy ambition, holy and dark, as two
Yeah.
divergent terms here. So I think ambition is the right term. Sorry for just the aside. I just think this was an interesting
Yeah. It's
debate I'd seen.
fascinating. Yeah. It's fascinating.
In Mandarin, are there distinct terms for evil ambition and good ambition?
Yeah. Yes. Like ambition is like 野心 in
Yishin?
Mandarin. 野心.
Uh-huh.
It's like the first character is 野. It's like the wild, wild,
Mhm.
very wild, very crazy. And the second character is heart. So a very crazy heart, a very wild heart. So it's kind of
A,
like that. Ambition.
a
So
heart,
you have, yeah, you have good 野心 or bad 野心. That makes sense. Yes.
a heart that has gone fade, as Tolkien might put it.
Yeah. 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 Good is example. Good word. Right choice.
Mm. Okay, so That's actually very fascinating. I didn't know that. Chinese linguistics seem quite um, interesting. Um,
Yes.
uh, well, it's just I know a little about Japanese linguistics, French linguistics, German, and Gaelic, and English, but not Chinese. So a heart that has gone fey. Um,
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna have to write that one down. Um, I'm gonna write that
I
down.
can
To help
I
people.
can send you the word so you can look it
Oh,
up.
all right. Um, I appreciate that. That'll be faster. Um, well, could you just break it down between heart and wild
Uh,
heart and whatnot?
sure.
Thank you. I I really really love linguistics like this, and this is what I love about runes, Scandinavian runes from 1,000 years ago, and uh, the Chinese and the Chinese characters of Asia is because like these word combinate these no I should say these combinations uh, are always very interesting because they come in two halves usually, sometimes three,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you get a very interesting medley of meaning, layered meanings, I should say, between in each word. Um, well, as I'm trying to translate this fantasy novel into French and English for my better understanding, I'm finding that the linguistics are interesting because I'm having to look into each meaning of every kanji Japanese character, which they got from China, I know. And it makes the translation, interesting as you learn more. I'm also trying to
Yeah.
translate this epic poem, the Scottish one, which has some German and French terms thrown in, into French and English. And it's interesting when you play with linguistics that way, that you find out all these different interesting little meanings. Um, of course, um, the great Luthien escapes um, because who could actually restrain her?
Yeah.
Now, she has a wild heart. I'll say that much. She has a very wild heart. But meanwhile, Beren and Felagund were imprisoned, and of course, a wolf is let loose into the bowels of the prison, and Sauron decides that this wolf's going to eat every single one of these people because he doesn't much like
Mhm.
them. And they do, and so the wolf starts devouring every day one different person. And Felagund ends up being well. He proves himself really freaking cool and badass when he tears himself free from his bonds and wrestles the werewolf to death with his and he kills it. It said with his hands and teeth, so he actually bit into it right back, which is pretty um, interesting. I hope he did it with ketchup. And
Yeah.
um, we get here one of the most tragic deaths and one of the saddest, as he says to Baron, "I go now to my long rest in the timeless halls beyond the seas and the mountains of Aman. It will be long ere I am seen among the Noldor again, and it may be that we shall not meet a second time in death or life, for the fates of our kindreds are apart. Farewell." He died then in the dark. Um,
Yeah.
and this is he is of course called the fairest and most beloved of the House of Finwë, and of course Beren mourns beside him in despair. And it's in that hour that it's a little sad because rescue is on its way, and Luthien arrives in the same hour that Felagund dies. And of course, she's too late to rescue Felagund. So
Yeah.
we get here a very ironic, sad um, scene. I don't know if this is something that a lot of um, your friends and you ever comment on about how close she was to rescuing Felagund.
You know, no, we didn't often comment on that, but we often comment on the nickname. the nickname of Finrod.
Oh,
I
Felagund.
told you before, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you did.
yeah.
It's
It's so funny. We call him um the Tooth.
the tooth
Finrod. We call him the Tooth
because he
because
wrestle. Well, he
because he
bites into.
uses, yeah. And
Uh,
but it's so funny. Sorry. and and I also think that it's very it will be very interesting, or very, I would say it will be very sad to see how Galadriel reacts when she finds out that her brother died because of saving Beren,
he
indirectly
should.
saving Beren, because is Galadriel must know Luthien for a while, so
Yeah,
he she want them to have a happy ending. She want to give her best wishes to them, but her brother died because of them. So that's sad.
yeah. I think Tolkien probably should have put in uh, a reference to Galadriel in another,
Yeah,
like
it
expanding
will be
that,
very interesting to see how she reacts. Yeah,
or like a throwaway line in Lord of the Rings. It would have been nice,
yeah, it's great.
but he doesn't. And this is one of his few times where I'm going to criticize Tolkien and say he failed as a writer. He should have had that little reference, but I don't think he does. Um, because
Well,
it would have
maybe he does.
Galadriel.
Maybe he did want to add some references here, because we know that the final draft, uh, before he died 1 month ago, he was still writing the Silmarillion,
Yeah,
Galadriel's story,
in particular,
specifically.
was
Yeah.
frustrating
So
for him is
never
he's
know
trying
that
to.
ever again. We will never
Yeah,
know that. Yeah.
yeah, that's fair. He was very frustrated by Galadriel because trying to connect her to the Silmarillion was hard on him. Um, it is very difficult when you're trying to connect these two very different stories together. Um, and of course, um, Luthien um, hears Baron's voice, and no, wait, let me see. Yeah, she crosses the bridge, breaks in, and uh, of course, she sings a song of greater power, it said, and which caused the wolves to howl and the island to tremble. Holy cow. Um, and she either has the greatest singing voice or the worst singing voice to do that. I couldn't resist that. Yeah. No, actually, she's supposed to have the greatest singing voice ever. And Sauron um, is filled with wonder and amazement at her song,
Yeah.
um, which we saw what happened with Felgun when he tried this. But we get a sense that Luthien is way more powerful than him. She makes the
Yeah.
entire island quake. And of course, he sends a wolf to the bridge. Juan slays it, and Sauron sends others one by one. And of course, Juan wins every time. Um, and then Sauron sends Draugluin, a very old lord of werewolves. And the battle between the two is very, 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 very long. And Draugluin escapes and goes back to his master, yipping and dies at his feet. But he tells him Juan is there. And Sauron decides, nope. Um, yeah, yeah, like he basically, well, no, he doesn't know, but he springs at Luthien. He decides just to bypass Juan to go for Luthien. Um, Now, of course, she falls into a swoon because she's afraid. But we also get we get a reference here to something that is reminiscent of something in Lord of the Rings, the foul vapor of his breath. this is reminiscent of the Nazgul, of the Nine
Okay.
Ring Race. Yeah,
Okay, makes sense.
yeah, there's that connection. They are in a way lesser than him and of him to an extent because of their rings. And Huan does not swoon though. And eventually, well, of course, Huan wins, and Sauron decides to change to the shape of a serpent. And he cannot forsake the grip of Huan. He cannot escape the dog. And um, and Luthien then strips him of his raiment of flesh. Now, this is also a nod to Norse mythology, with Freya, that is to say, the Queen of the Gods, having um, a eagle cloak. She would throw on a cloak of eagle feathers and turn into an eagle and fly around. Odin, the king of the Norse gods, would do this as well. He'd throw on a cloak, turn into a bird, fly around. He did this at one point, I think. And this is a very Nordic thing. But there's also, on the other hand, now that I think about it, I never noticed it. I didn't notice it on previous readings. Um, there's a reference in the Bible to the fact that it'll be a woman who helps to conquer a serpent, that is to say, the devil, and it's supposed to be Mary because she gives birth to, uh, well, Christ and whatnot. And in a literary sense, this is Tolkien kind of taking that and applying it in a way to his story with the very beauteous Luthien who will conquer a serpent or helps conquer one. And of course, Luthien is someone who's going to mother a great lineage later. And so there's the Catholic influence, but there's also another thing. There's a European cultural influence because in quite a few European countries from the Roman period, because it's the Romans who really love dogs. I did a bit of study recently on that as well. I found it fascinating. There's a Roman who actually had his dog buried with him later, but he buried his dog in an auspicious tomb by the road, and the engraving is one of the most sad and heartbreaking of all times because he just like he conveyed his feelings about his dog and how the dog would sit on his lap while he ate and he'd feed the dog. But then when the dog died, this man and his wife could not find any happiness because they felt as though they had lost a child. But there's that, and in French culture, dogs are well, I've read of some historic murders where men would see a man beat his own dog, and men would then murder that man because they see it as you can't hurt a dog. A dog is sacred. But it's because they're believed to be purer than humans. And so Tolkien's slipping in there a European cultural influence, which is very Roman, very Italian and French. But also a lot of English do love their dogs as well. But he's also throwing in his Catholicness, but he's also throwing in Norse mythology. This is all kind of being mixed in together in his great cauldron of creativity, his cauldron of Ceridwen, his holy grail. And he ends up, how do I put it? He then ends up having Luthien finally cross the bridge because Sauron has to, well, he yields himself. He's like, okay, I'll run along now. Now he takes the form of a vampire and makes like a tree and leaves. And he goes to Tar Nufuin and dwells there, filling it with horror. So, too bad for him. And this is really the first time he appears in the chronology to an extent as a major villain, and he's basically beaten really soundly. And he's got power greater than Gandalf and Saruman. He is formidable, and yet Luthien and Huan basically just beat him up and toss him out and take his lunch money and his keys to his house, I guess. So like it's really remarkable how in the First Age he doesn't measure up, but in the third age, he's the strongest guy around. Like, what's the power scaling here? Is just like, I don't mean to burst out there. It's just so different how powerful the characters are in the first age, and how much weaker they are in the third one.
Yes, I think it's a very interesting way to look at Tolkien's story. Uh, when a character appears both in first age and in second age, or a character both in second age or third age, it's like a character goes
Arc.
through all the ages, and you kind of observe him or her through different lens,
Yeah.
and it will change the image of him or her. Sauron, for example, we just mentioned that. And
Galadriel. Elrond.
yeah, another example, and in another great example is Elrond's brother, because
Mm-hmm.
the first time Elros appears, uh, is in the like the last
First age.
chapter of the first age. Like, he was six. He was six, a baby. And in the next page, he was 100 years old man.
Yeah,
And
and
and, the, and he was the ancestor of all the Numenorean kings.
and
He's
of
so
Erebor.
quick with Yeah, he's so quick with it. So I think he was a good example of that. You can see characters different sides through different lengths of ages.
Mm. Yeah, it's one of the most fascinating things about seeing this mythopoetic
Yeah,
history, and it's it's a very difficult thing for a writer to do, and it is a very fascinating thing for them to do.
yeah,
It's a shame more writers don't do it, and I think only Tolkien and to an extent Howard did it. Like, they seem the only two who were interested in, you know what I mean, like doing this big sweeping
yeah. I know.
opera that crosses ages. Um, but of course, with Sauron departed, we have Beren um, and Luthien who are reunited, and of course, uh, Beren is found there in that pit, full of despair and um, and just filled with horror because he's lost his best friend.
Yeah,
And I wonder now. It's very poetic. How Tolkien words it. Where is it? Um, uh, Now Luthien thinks he's dead because he's in such mourning and he's just not moving. So he's basically catatonic. He's catatonic as he clings to the corpse of Felagund. And the thing is, uh, you have then thinking him already dead, she put her arms about him and fell into a dark forgetfulness. But Beren came back to the light out of the pits of despair, lifted her up, and they looked again upon one another, and the day rising over the dark hills shone upon them. That Here's the sad thing. Tolkien kind of had a moment like this, to an
yeah,
extent, when he was lying wounded, and basically in the sick, I should say, in the after he was shipped out from the back to England from the war front. So I think he's writing from personal experience
mm, true.
here. He, like I said, as you know, I've read some of the letters of Tolkien, in particular those of World War One, and they that fifth letter is just, if your heart doesn't ache for Tolkien, um, I don't know if you have a heart. It's just sorrowful. But of course, they bury Felagund, and and there his corpse would remain inviolate until the land was changed and broken, and foundered under destroying seas. But Finrod walks with Finarfin, it said, his father, beneath the trees in Eldamar. So he does come back. He's incarnated, but not like as someone else, but like because most people when they think reincarnated, it's all one word, but it's re-carnated. He's incarnated again into a new body, so to speak, over in Eldamar. But it's one of the most tragic fates in the Silmarillion, and I have to admit, I really like the friendship between Beren and Finrod. It's one of the best romances. And it's also, it's very marked that the romance between Luthien and Beren encompasses such a moment. Now, I have one of my readers who's in the US has been divorced 3 times, and what he said was his greatest mistake in his marriages has been to show weakness in front of his wives. And I don't know, because Tolkien showed the ultimate forms of weakness when he was broken in that medical bed. And I'm not going to criticize him. He obviously knows more than I do about marriage because he's been married. But I think, yes, the man should remain strong. But when you've been to war, when you've endured, like what Beren and Tolkien have endured, I do think there's a lot of women like Luthien, like Edith, who understand and whatnot. It's a complicated topic. And I think this is where Western feminism has actually greatly weakened the wills of everyone involved with it. But that's a completely different issue. I think Beren is a much more complex and interesting character than what people think of at first glance. Same with Luthien. She, like, every time I read her story, I just like her more and more. I can't help it. She was probably in my top 12 favorite elves. Now she's getting to be in my top 10 or top 5. She's just charming. Her and Idril. I really like Idril.
So, like, your favorite...
We've gone on long enough.
Okay. So let me ask you one question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite female character in Tolkien universe?
Eowyn.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Okay, she's great. She's great.
Okay.
I love Nathaniel the most, but I also love like Luthien, Elwyn, and Aradel. Of course, I love them. Yeah.
Well, Nerdanel, I kind of guessed. You're a big Nerdanel fan or ship fan.
Yeah, I think so. I think she's great. She's great. She's very unique female character in Tolkien universe, I would say.
She's headstrong, and she's early on the only one who could temper the will of Fëanor. But then later she cannot, because Fëanor, well, his heart is very fey, so to speak.
Yeah.
He goes nuts. I think he cast too much of himself into the Silmarils, so that in a way it drained a great deal, because the Silmarils are not evil by their nature. I think it drained a lot of the good light in him, so to speak. And what was left was someone who was very jealous and dark and nefarious in a way. He darkened himself when he poured so much light because it's not just the light of the trees, but it's the light of Feanor that was poured into those Silmarils. And what was left, and they did corrupt him in a way because they were so beautiful, and he became obsessed with them. But in a way, the love between him and Nerdnell is damaged and destroyed because of Feanor's own growing madness. And that's one
Yeah.
of the most interesting arcs. Just to compare and contrast it with Luthien and Beren, where we have those two cast into the depths of suffering and grief and pain as they are made to endure untold horrors. And let's be honest, the Beren and Luthien story is very much a horror love story. It's like
Yeah.
Dracula, which is a love story between Mina and Jonathan Harker, who have to endure all this horror. They have to endure untold terror and abuse from Dracula to come together as a couple. And that's kind of what Tolkien does here. And this story is very much a horror story. Yeah. Oh, and we had someone in the chat. I just noticed.
Really?
Scott Staple, no, Scott Stapp Lover. Good
Hello.
morning. That's a first. My Twitch is very, very small. So like it's about 10 people, I think.
Okay.
But I'm thinking I'm going to start streaming these streams over on Twitter and just use primarily that Twitter for that because it'll put it to more use. And my problem with my YouTube streams is the algorithm. You're either a streaming channel or you're a video channel of YouTube.
Okay.
And they don't like it if you're both. So I want to try to get as many views on these sort of videos as possible.
Okay.
Substack, you can only live stream from your phone, and I don't like that as much. And so we'll be streaming on Twitter,
Cool.
and from now on. But I think we should cut it short here because we're at the halfway point for this story. I think because
Okay.
the couple are about to embark on honestly one of the coolest, most horror-drenched, one of the most fascinating adventures and journeys ever. I'm sorry, I love the second part of the story. It's probably one of my favorites. So yeah, I don't know. Like, actually, I'll ask you, where does this story rank as far as your favorite stories of the Silmarillion? I know you
Sorry,
probably like the
your
fan.
voice kind of. Sorry. Your voice kind of off. Can you repeat?
Okay,
What are you saying
so
now?
you know you have several epics in the Silmarillion. You have the Epic of Feanor, Fingolfin, Beren and Luthien, Children of Húrin, Fall of Gondolin, then everything with the War of Wrath, I think, and all that. No, it'd probably be the Vengeance of the Feanorians after Fall of Gondolin, because where would this one rank? Is this a favorite or just in the middle?
You mean Beren and Luthien?
Yeah.
I think. Wait, that's a good question. I never thought about it. Well, I will say my favorite event of the first age. Okay, my favorite event of the first age is not a epic one. It's a very small one. Which is Meglo adopt Aaron and Eros.
That's a good moment.
That's my favorite event of the whole first age, and another one that is also my favorite is Children of Húrin. So tourist story, yeah. So
that
I think
story rips.
I love that story so much, and I think Beren and Luthien ranks like top 2 or top 3.
Okay, just after Children of Hurin and that
Yeah.
moment with Mankor.
Yeah.
Oh, good choices. Well, I'm excited then for Children of Hurin, which I
Yeah, I'm
know I've
excited
got it
too.
boxed. I got it boxed somewhere. Um, I can't wait to rip that out from because we packed up because I move around a lot for work, and I, of course, have to bring Tolkien with me everywhere. But and my Rocky movies, I have to bring the 6 Rocky movies everywhere. But I'm well, we might be moving soon again in a month or two after my contract for a construction company ends, and I think what we are going to have to do is um, I can't wait for Children of Hurin. That
Yeah, me too.
one I'm gonna have to, yeah, that one I can't wait for Dan to read it. Um, he's
Prepare to
probably gonna
be break.
prepare to
Yeah.
cry.
Yeah.
Because actually it's a story that Lexi doesn't like reading too often. I think she reads it quite often, but she's mentioned in one of her videos. It's just so heartbreaking. Part of her wants
Yeah.
to weep every time because um, she's like she makes fun of it. She always cracks jokes about it, but she says if she doesn't make fun of it, she wants to cry because it's just too darn heartbreaking.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, Lexi's very tough. I've talked to her like in Discord and whatnot. She's very strong, her, but she finds that story very, very, very sad. Um,
Mm.
Matt really likes it. Actually, maybe I'll propose after we finish Lord of the Rings a Silmarillion read through with Matt from Dork Lords. I don't. I Yeah. I just want to read the Silmarillion as much as possible because it's the greatest book ever written. Um, but anyways, we're at an end with our show, um, and because we've been going on for 2 hours, and so I will be downloading this and uploading this to YouTube and everywhere else I can think of. Um, and of course, special thanks goes to Eleanor for joining me, which you can find Eleanor over on Instagram, uh, on YouTube, anywhere else, Eleanor.
Yeah, just these 2 accounts.
Okay.
YouTube and
Well,
Instagram.
okay. I'll put them in the description down below. Please do follow Eleanor. She's done, I think, cosplaying of Greek for Greek stuff. You've done stuff for um, Tolkien. You've also done stuff like make content on the lore, and you've also got on your Instagram stuff like recordings of the different conventions in Beijing, I think, which is really, really freaking cool. So this is where, if you want to see what um, arguably one of the coolest um, fan bases of fantasy fiction ever is like, you follow Eleanor. Um, she's got all these great videos and whatnot. It's really a great experience getting to see that stuff. I cannot recommend her YouTube and her Instagram enough. And of course, my Substack or Royal Road account will be in the description as well below her links. So until next time, do take care and do stay subscribed or subscribe for the next video. So I guess it'd be Namarie, everyone.
See you next
Uh,
time.
or or Jiajian, I think it is.
Yeah, correct.